how he's jumped to the defense of government's policies, irrespective of which way they are swaying. What should be the expectation of such a person? One, coming before the vetting committee made up of some of his colleagues, and of course, how he will be discharging himself as a deputy minister of state.
Well, I mean, there are those who see him as quite a hothead. And, you know, I say that with all the respect I can command to the gentleman, because he's a nice gentleman. I mean, if you meet him, he's a very, very nice guy. Which people regard as symptomatic of someone who is a hothead. And so you would expect that some of these things will be raised today. Well, is it a good strategy to put them together in the same ministry?
That's Katie.
Yeah, I knowing the Honorable Katie Hammond and how he deals with issues, and the Honorable what's his name, Stephen Amoah. One would say that, you know, maybe they should find themselves in different ministries. But again, this is the judgment of the president, and he thinks that they can work together. Again, when you are making appointments like this or nominations like this, you normally will speak to the substantive minister as to what his thinking is, because normally there's some consultation done around those issues. So yes, you would expect that the NDC will come to the party with, you know, the daggers out, because he said some things that have, if you like, rattled quite a lot of people, and the NDC will be doing quite some, you know, some work on him at today's sitting to unsettle him, sort of, and then
the tendency to have his own words bites him.
Exactly, and you would diligence or if you like, crudeness, if I should use. You know, those two terms. But ultimately, he is a PhD holder, if my memory serves me correctly. And as an academic, you would expect that he has read enough material as to understand the space of trade, know the issues, you know, in that ministry so well as to respond in a passable way. He doesn't need to put up a stellar performance, because what are the issues? The matter is clear that the NDC will not vote, but yet they are minded to ask questions at the vetting, you know, of these nominees. So he should put up, you know, a passable performance in the eyes of the good people of Ghana, and where he does, even if the NDC doesn't vote for him, perhaps.
You mentioned the position of the NDC on this entire vetting process. I mean, the committee is to resume soon. We'll be crossing over shortly. But let's expand the conversation further and look at the posturing of the NDC. One, the party itself and its directives, the minority caucus, the press conference this morning by the minority caucus, and the position they've taken on the vetting. The NDC executives were voted for by NDC members, but the MPs in Parliament would have been voted for by Ghanaians, irrespective. Voted for by just a section of the public to be issuing such directives that have national implications. I'm not sure that where we are pushing our level of democracy to in this matter.
Well, I agree with you, and I'm one of those people who think that if, you know, representative democracy is anything to go by, if representation is anything to go by, if democracy is anything to go by, then the views of those who sent the MPs to Parliament must matter. The MPs are not there on their own accord. They are there exercising the authority of the collective, you know, going on their behalf. So ideally, in a functional democracy, this matter, a member of Parliament would have called a town hall meeting in his constituency and say that, well, I'm faced with a dilemma. Well, I'm minded to perform my constitutional duty as a member of Parliament. But then also there's an issue of oversight in the sense that, look, this government is sort of bloated. And I think that we do not need to add further numbers to the number of people serving in government. What do the people of my constituency think? so that whatever input that they make at that town hall, even if it is 2,000 or 3,000 people there, at least you have a sense of what exactly the constituents are saying. Of course, it is impractical to expect that in every case or on every matter that comes up before Parliament, MPs should go back to their constituencies. But where topical issues are in play, the expectation, and I believe this is a reasonable position to take, should be that you go back to got elected by a partisan, team of voters to decide what happens, on the floor of Parliament. Of course, I respect the fact that these are people leading a political party. And if you look at the provisions of the Constitution, and, with your permission, let me just refer quickly to Article 55, Clause 3 of the Constitution of the Republic of Ghana. I'm not going to quote it in extenso, but basically it says that it empowers political parties to participate fully in the political process and to help develop policies for members of Parliament elected on their ticket on how they vote and they do not vote in Parliament. Of course, we understand the history of how whipping in Parliament came to be. Exactly. As a UK concept, the leadership is in Parliament, so therefore it is clear that you must take a certain position, and they get you to toe that line. Where you do not toe the line, they can withdraw the whip from you. But that doesn't mean that you are thrown out of Parliament. You are left sort of naked, and so the whip in Parliament doesn't apply to you until it is restored. So if you look at it that way, I do not believe that if you situate it within the Ghanaian constitutional arrangement, it is possible to say that parties or political parties should be able to direct a member of Parliament. A member of Parliament is entitled to tell his political party that, look, I'm not listening to you. The people of Ghana elected me to come and do A, B, C, D. I am listening to them. Of course, the party can say that we want to withdraw your membership and all of that. But the consequences of order on discretionary power, which the Constitution says that when you are exercising them, you should be fair. You should not be whimsical, you should not be capricious and all of that. There should not be prejudice. But on this particular matter, it would seem that by reason of the position that the NDC takes, the MPs will go to the party with a predetermined mindset. And that doesn't serve the good people of Ghana, and I find it unfortunate. Mind you, the MPP also took a similar position. Exactly. In the case of the Honorable Oforiatta, completely, unacceptable, and I would say irresponsible on the part of the two. MPs should not be acting under duress. They must go to Parliament, they are representing people, and the decisions they take must, to a great extent, reflect the views or the thinking of the people they represent. If they are there and they're taking self-serving decisions, they're taking decisions that are inconsistent with the thinking of the people, then there's a problem.
Great. Now, for a person in a position of the minority leader, Dr. Kessiel Ato-Forsen, this perhaps may be his major showing following his appointment. I mean, we saw him during the when the finance minister appeared before the House to speak on the domestic debt exchange program. Now, what does this say about him and the kind of hang the party has over him, for which reason they've brought him to serve as minority leader?
In this case, you're referring to the Honorable Ato-Forsen.
Ato-Forsen.
Well, you see, it puts him in a difficult position because this is a well-read, member of Parliament. He's schooled in Oxford and many other places, holds a PhD, and his discharged himself quite creditably as a member of Parliament and then also as a former deputy minister, previously the minority spokesperson on finance. So he knows his onions. Now, what the NDC has effectively done is to put him before Ghanaians as someone who is subject to their direction and control.
Exactly.
And I find that, quite unfortunate, because in opposition, the minority leadership and the party in general in Parliament the face of the party, fending off government policy in a way that reflects the interests of the state in their view. Dealing with government policy as to shape it in a way that reflects the thinking of the good people of Ghana, ensuring that proper oversight is done. That should not be misconstrued to mean that that position should reflect what the leadership in Adabraka or Asylum Down, thinks. I think it's unfortunate. These are people who can read materials and come to a conclusion for themselves, whether or not ABCD has to be done. Of course, if the NDC is minded to urge its members of parliament, yes, a language like, oh, we are urging them to consider, that's a more acceptable language. But in the statement, they said that they were directing them. And I find that quite offensive. I don't think that it should lie in the mouth of a political party, NPP or NDC, to direct a member of parliament as to how to vote. Yeah. It is completely unacceptable, and we should not encourage that culture. Right. What we require is a certain faith in the democratic process, that the MPs representing us would have the right judgment as to make judgments that are in the interest of the good people of Ghana. But where they are told jump and then they are asking how high, sit for how long, then I think they are basically stooges sitting there, and it doesn't serve our interest, because the few people leading the NDC could have their own agenda. How does that agenda sit with the interests of the collective people of Ghana? But that is not to say that the government has got, if its actions right. I believe the government is bloated. I believe they have to reduce the numbers. I believe they have not so far been value for money in terms of what they promised to do, and in my view, they have failed. President would have to do that. But the idea that NDC is directing MPP previously, I think these positions are quite offensive in my view to democracy.
So it seems to create a picture of a puppeteer and his puppet.
Yes. You can even talk to them, on the quiet, hey, this is our thing.
But do not come out.
But to come out and tell everybody we are directing you. If I'm a member of parliament on the NDC ticket, or on the ticket of the MPP or CPP, as the case may be, I would not take that time kindly. I will come out and tell the party that no, I'm not representing your views. I'm representing the views of constituency A. Of course, I'm on your ticket, but that doesn't mean that you direct what I do as a member of parliament. It's
looks like it's a thing with this current crop of executives of the NDC, because same concerns were raised when the reshuffle of the leadership in parliament itself was made. I mean, there were comments or concerns that really everything could have been held indoors. Communication could have gone on indoors, and then perhaps have the Honorable Haruna Idrisu come out to say that for reason A, B, and C, I am resigning as minority leader, instead of party communication saying that a reshuffle has been done and henceforth A, B, C persons are taking over the leadership of the party or the minority in parliament. It looks like we're going to be seeing more of this from this current crop of executives of the NDC.
And I think the people who are in leadership should be worried about that, because you don't want to create the impression as though you are there doing the full-time bidding, if you like, of allegiance to the Republic of Ghana as by law established, and you pledge allegiance. You pledge to deal with matters fairly. You pledge to ensure that the laws of the land are respected, and I do not think that in prosecuting that commitment, you should in a way be restrained by the positions of your party, even when they are unreasonable. where there's an unreasonable instruction, I think respectfully, you should be able to tell the party that you are incapable of carrying out those instructions. My thinking on the matter should reflect the views of the people of my constituency. But it's unfortunate that MPs don't do town hall meetings. If I was a member of parliament, you know, I would have called a town hall meeting on this matter. And if where my people believe that the party position is inconsistent with what they think, I would be minded to go back to parliament and say that, look, this is what it is. But again, that's just making the point. Ultimately, it will come down to a vote in parliament. If they go with a majority report, there would have to be a secret ballot at the end of the day. If it gets there, and the minority doesn't work out, and there's a secret ballot, when the vote is taken, of course, you would expect that a decision will be made one way or the other. And you will be shocked to know that some people from within the other side will be voting for. Because again, how did, you know, Bagman become a Speaker of Parliament? It was because some people from some other Exactly, Honorable Acheampong, Nkrumah, and some other, you know, ministers today. There were votes taking on them, and strictly speaking, looking at the numbers, you'll be tempted to believe that okay, it will be so close, or it will be this way or that way. But some way, somehow, they are ministers of state. So, at some point, I think reason prevails, even if it is not reason. Something happens to the judgment of members of parliament. Some members of parliament, when they get to the ballot box, and they reflect in what decisions get made ultimately.
Exactly. Now, the former minority leader, the Honorable Haruna Idrisu, by virtue of his previous position, has sat on the appointments committee and would have been present today if indeed he was still the minority leader. Was his absence felt today?
Of course, I think so. Haruna, again, he's also been in parliament since 2005, I should think, if my memory serves me correctly. And he's also one of the star members of parliament. And we've seen it over the years at the level of the appointments committee. Of course, people would say all kinds of things about how the NDC leadership handled previous appointments and how they were passed and all of that. But nobody can question the quality of the questions he always raised before the committee. The quality of questions that came in from the Honorable Muntaka Mubarak and some other members of parliament on the appointments committee. So if you look at it, I would say that, yes, I mean, you know, although the new leadership, they have done quite a great job in terms of some of the questions that were asked. You would notice that, for instance, the KT Hammond matter I was talking about, perhaps if you had the accompanying legislation, and then also the judgment of the court in Werekubro Bay, the Republic versus Werekubro Bay, or Werekubro Bay versus the Republic, and all of that. If a law looked at those, the approach would have been different. And with the greatest respect to them, would do with some of these materials would be substantially different from what a lawyer would do when minded to actually apply the principles of law. So again, I would insist that some way, somehow, his absence is felt. But I also think that the new leadership is doing quite a great job, even with some gaps here and there.
The president, by the powers appointed him in the Constitution, has the freedom to appoint ministers, but this is subject to approval by Parliament. Now, the vetting process, really, what should be the outcome of the vetting process? I'm asking because most often than not, it's confrontational, and the takeaways or the impact of the takeaways may be minimized due to the level of confrontations between the minister-designate and the members on the committee, so that we get to really miss out on what the committee should be looking out for from a minister-designate.
I think that members of parliament have to understand what their job is. The matter of what parliament should do went before the Supreme Court in the case of J.H. Mensah versus the Attorney General. At the time, the question was about whether holdover ministers who served in the first Rawlings administration, who the president for some reason thought should be retained, should go into office and start working without the necessary parliamentary approval. The government of the day thought that they could go straight into office and start working without need for parliamentary intervention. The Honorable J.H. Mensah disagreed and went to court. The Supreme Court decided the matter and said that, look, the tenure of ministers, those new ministers would have to go back to Parliament. But the question was, what is approval of Parliament? Or the vetting, it is not a term of art. It's not like the Constitution doesn't say that this is what you do to show that you have, vetted and approved a member of Parliament. In fact, under the very first government, the Honorable Speaker, or Right Honorable Speaker, D.F. Annan, basically read the names, and then Parliament, everybody say, they were US, which is what? Ask relevant questions and expect that the people would supply the answers. So the Constitution talks about approval. It does not say in detail the format that would have to be used. But we have elected to use this committee. We have elected to use the approach used in the US to do questioning, like an interviewer asking questions of an interview before, a panel, and that panel is trying to determine whether the person is qualified or not. And it is to ensure that there's some transparency. Position has demonstrated passable competence as to justify a decision that he should go and work as a Minister of State. So the point I'm making is that MPs you are trying to expose gaps or his understanding or his attitude to things and all of that. And if there are things that have happened since his election as to make it legally untenable for him to remain as a member of Parliament, let alone become a Minister of State, you should expose that. But where you have reduced it to let's settle political scores, I think it does not serve the interests of the Republic. It does not serve the interests of the good people of Ghana. They must understand the nature of their job and do it to the glory of God, I believe.
Well, is it to say to restrict the line of questioning to the competence of the individual and, of course, the sector where he's being sent to?
Yes, I think so. And I'm one of those people who believe that, and that is to stretch the law, that if a president appoints you for Minister of State and you are approved by Parliament for the job, and the president decides he wants to move you from that ministry to another ministry, I hold a view, some people disagree, and I know there are some other people who hold that view, that movement should be subject to parliamentary, approval, because you are determined qualified to perform the role of Minister for Trade, not the Minister for Education. So where that movement is happening, I think you must to go into that in that office.
But that does not happen currently.
No, it doesn't happen. So what happens is the president nominates you, Parliament thinks that you are good for trade, the president can, after they approve you, there and then, even before he gives you the scroll of office, reassign you to finance. And then you go and you are performing finance functions. I think there's some democratic deficit there.
Clearly.
And that lacuna would have to be fixed in a way.
You come back and prove your worth.
Yeah, that's right.
For the new ministry you're being.
I mean, in organizations, if you for say managing director in charge of so and so, and they are moving you, I think the board normally would have a say as to whether they should, or the appointing authority would have a say as to whether they should move you to some other department, or there will be some form of questioning, or they would have to, interview you again to determine whether or not you can perform that function. But Ghana, everything goes, But again, the constitutionality of that view, some people doubt it. But I believe that to carry some weight.
Right, let's go back to the individuals who have received their nominations and are expected to face the committee today. Acheampong has done his part. He has survived the committee, if I can put it that way.
Well, a decision is yet to be made.
But of course, the heckling he has survived. We're yet to see the Member of Parliament for Acheampong, so the Honourable Stephen Amoah, who, when approved, will deputize
for him,
for Acheampong. Now, Stephen Amoah, we have seen serve as the CEO for Maslock, and now he's been nominated to go into trade and industry as a deputy. From the discharge of his duties at Maslock, what really is he bring, and of course his personal qualifications and professional qualifications as well, what really is he bringing to the table at the Trade and Industry Ministry?
Well, you see, to lean on the response of the Honorable Acheampong, I think that's a matter that the President would have to speak to, because he must have weighed his, what do you call it, makes him, competent to do the job.
But not just to reward.
You see, the issue is beyond the fact that you should qualify as a voter and a member of parliament, therefore, or be a member of parliament. There's no other requirement really that describes or defines who should be a minister. Do you understand?
Yeah.
So you must qualify to be voted for or to vote.
Yeah.
You must qualify to run for office as a member of parliament, or you must be a member of parliament. And majority of the people who are in the president's cabinet or government must have been from parliament. So that is what it is. So the criteria really to use to determine whether you are qualified for the job is not spelled out in law. It is only that members of parliament through the appointments committee use the process of vetting to try and determine whether a person qualifies. So that's why you have, in some cases, some people did not know the difference between and yet they were approved.
Yeah.
The point I'm making is, the Honorable Amoah is an academic.
Yeah.
He's a member of parliament. He's done a number of things previously, including the media. And he's where he is today by reason of some understanding of how to manage things. You don't go and win an election to represent the good people of his constituency without knowing a thing or two about how to manage people or how to win an election. And he previously he can perform in the area of trade, a highly technical area that combines economics, that combines law, that combines, diplomacy, because many of these things are in law, economics, and then also the international, relations space. So if you look at it like that, the question is whether he's done something like that previously, or whether he's such a fast learner as to make it happen in good time.
But he has only 2 years.
Yes, so again, that's the question that he himself would have to answer.
Yeah.
And historically, people have been appointed without any experience in a particular field. Is it time we took a second look at that arrangement, so that if you want to work in, say, finance, you should be someone with a finance background. Mind you, the current Minister of Finance, although an investment banker, people now accuse him of failing to actually run the economy to the glory of God. So the fact that you may have rich experience in a particular area would not necessarily mean that you have a stellar performance as a minister. Ultimately, it will come down to how you apply yourself to the job. And if he's a fast learner, and I want to believe that, he should have some trace in that respect, he should be able to apply himself to the job where he gets approved.
Well, he's communicated for the party and for the government on a number of issues spanning all sectors. So perhaps he really has some level of knowledge going into the trade ministry. But
it's a highly technical area, trust me.
It is, really, it is.
Yeah.
But of course, he would have another deputy to lean on.
Yes.
Yes. What we know now is that one of the deputies that was serving at the Trades Ministry, the person of Herbert Crapper, is being moved from there.
Energy.
Yes, to energy. And then, of course, Mohammed Amin Adam will also be moved from the energy ministry to the finance ministry as a Minister of State. So, I mean, all these are coming up because my question really is hinged on the president's not losing an opportunity to demonstrate his respect for loyalty. And of course, some of the names that have come up in this particular reshuffle, if we can call it a reshuffle, and then what your thoughts really are on to the creation of a sort of more ministries to add on to. I'm talking in the person of someone like Obiama, who's being moved from the ministry to a Minister of State at local government.
Well, he is already presently a deputy minister there. What has happened is an elevation to the position of a Minister of State in that ministry.
This will come with an increase in salary.
Well, yes, if you look at it, MPs are paid differently from members of parliament. He's a member of parliament and a deputy minister. And deputy ministers are paid differently from ministers. So that elevation would obviously come with an enhanced package. But again, it depends on whether he has decided or elected to take the salary of a member of parliament or a deputy minister or a minister in this new case. That is if he gets the nod. But I mean, back to your question really. Nobody appoints people who are not loyal to serve in their team, let alone in their government. If I give you the opportunity right now to name people who work in your inner circle, you must be comfortable with the people.
Exactly.
Because if you go and choose someone who has the potential to undermine you or stab you in the back, you'll be wary and you say, no, you don't want to do that. So yes, loyalty would always play a part in determining who gets to serve in a president's government. But again, is there emphasis on capacity or in a previous role? That should be how we judge. And like I said, the Honorable, Amwa, it's achieving things for, and he is an academic. You don't become a PhD holder without understanding a few things about how to, read materials and make sense of them and come to a reasonable or reasoned conclusion regarding a position which has been articulated in diverse ways by various academics. You read them together and you try to distill what should be your own view and you come to a conclusion. So with that kind of background, I believe that he should be able to read materials and to make some reasonable deduction as to what they mean. But what I have said is that the trade function is one that combines law, economics, and international relations. Alan has done what some people call a passable job, and I give him that. He's done quite a lot of work in that space. Previously, and he's worked in that space for a lot of years in Africa and elsewhere. So he understands what trade and related policies are all about. I do not know if the Honorable Amwa commands the same level of depth and previous experience in the space, although I know he has done certain things in his previous life. But if he applies himself and is minded to do the same, I would expect that, at least even not for anything at all, he would make some little contributions to the fortunes of his political party in government. Because if he fails, he would have failed himself, he would have failed the ministry, he would have failed his boss, the Honorable Acheampong, if the two of them get approved, and he would have, he would have failed the president, and above all, the good people of Ghana and his constituency for that matter.
All right, thank you very much, Sky. We understand the committee has resumed, and so we're crossing over to Parliament to observe proceedings.
My skills, intelligence gathering, investigations, research, business leadership. I have some publications, several of them, and some unpublished academic work. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I want you to clarify a few things on your CV for me. On page 2 of the CV, I see postgraduate diploma in law, University of Law. What is that?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's University of Laws, University of Laws in the UK. A simple Google will help us. I don't have any material to present to you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Kindly add the S so that the record reflects the proper name, University of Laws. Actually, the first time I saw it, I was confused and I Googled it. So. All right. And you said you are an adjunct lecturer in Gimpa?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I was.
You were. I was going to ask you whether you have obtained your permission to perform what's the name? Office of Profit. Did you acquire that? Well, this is 2023. It says up to 2022. I don't see any record here, but let's move on. Honourable members, that is our member. He's a member of this committee. We put him before you. Eric, you haven't spoken, so I'll start from you.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for the opportunity. Honourable nominee, you are most welcome to this all-important committee. I have 3 questions, very simple questions for you. All the agricultural resources needed for us to achieve food sufficiency. Unfortunately, we are unable to achieve that. And as we speak, we spend a whopping $2.4 billion annually to import food to supplement local production. This is creating unemployment, poverty among farmers, and all the associated ills. As you step into the ministry, can you share with the committee what programs you put in place to reduce the deficit, if not to eliminate it?
Since my nomination, eminent nomination to the ministry, I've been doing some research about agric in Ghana, and I've been surprised myself that a country like Ghana, arable lands, active people, workforce, that we are not able to produce enough to feed ourselves. With the chairman, I found out that several factors contribute to this. One is the yield per hectare. Currently, for rice, we are crawling at around 3 metric tons per hectare. as compared to what they are doing right here in River State, 10 metric tons per hectare, and even in Thailand, around 5 to 6 metric tons per hectare. If you look at all the other areas, you realize that we don't have how as to attain the yields that we require. It's one area that I'm going to focus on if this committee do me the honors. And I'm going to push extensively the improved yield to farmers. Mr. Chairman, I'm not for import. But you realize that the agri sector in itself is not that attractive for our young people to get into. Primarily land tenure systems affecting large-scale agriculture, access to capital. I want to focus on that in the next 2 years as best as I can. Sector attractive for young people, make it attractive for people to go into farming. I also want to focus within these 2 years that, if you do me the honors, to look at large-scale agriculture. I know you are the chairman of the AGRIC, ranking member of the AGRIC committee. But I also don't see why, if Ghana consumes about 1.5 million metric tons of rice a year, that we are not able to produce 4.5 million metric tons of such, so that, I'm saying, Ghana consumes 1.5 million metric tons of rice. But I don't understand why we are not able to produce 4.5 million metric tons. 2, 1, for our own consumption. 2, for food resilience and buffer. And 3, for export. Because compared to our neighbors, we have perhaps the most arable land. So it's one major agenda that I have to see if I can push large-scale farming or lay the foundation for it within the able to serve them.
Because every nation must have food buffer against emergencies. And so somewhere in 2011, when the National Food Buffer Stock Company was being established, one of the mandates given them was to maintain or keep strategic food stocks against emergencies. So that should there be any emergency, famine will not consume Ghanaians. Will have something to lean on in terms of food. As we speak, since 2012, that an amount of 15 million Ghana cedis was advanced to the National Buffer Stock to support their operations. Not a peswa. Enable them play. We do not have a cup of grains stored anywhere against emergencies. Honorable Minister, what do you think must be done immediately to assure Ghanaians that should, in case of any emergency, the Ghana buffer stock will be ready to sustain us for at least some days to enable us find something else to do?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was surprised myself when I found out that buffer stock is struggling. To the extent that they had the opportunity to feed the free SHS program. They have supplied quite a lot, but they are not getting payments on time. So beyond their initial seed capital, they are struggling in other areas. This is something that I will push to reverse immediately, that I get in. I know that these are hard times, but I will advocate strongly that as part of our national security, we need to ensure that buffer stock is positioned to deliver us when we get there. So, Ranking, be assured, I'm going to work with you to ensure that buffer stock is resourced to do what it's supposed to do. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, my last question. Honorable nominee, more cereals to reduce import of cereals into our country. The program was touted as one of the best to redeem our farmers from abject poverty. Looking at the state of agriculture, as you have read, you have already indicated, what has been the significant impact of this program on first food security and also the lives of our farmers?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Planting for Food and Jobs is a solid program that was conceptualized and implemented by this government. Rankin, you realize that on maize, we had in 2016, our yield was about 1.6 metric tons per hectare. Today, the yield is around 4 metric tons. For rice, 5 metric tons. And for soya bean, about 4. This is some of the, I can go on and on and on, but these are some of the things that the Planting for Food and Jobs have done. They have improved the yields such that the sector growth rate in 2016, which was hovering around 2.7%, today is averaging about 6%. So if you look at all the metrics under the Planting for Food and Jobs and all the grains, except for rice, we have been achieving surpluses from 2016 to date. Of course, there are factors that are, the follow-up will be, if we are having surpluses, what accounts for the inflation? We'll get there. But in terms of contributing to ensure that there is food available, the Planting for Food and Job has been relatively successful. And I want to go and continue by supporting the various modules under the Planting for Food and Jobs, if given the opportunity, to ensure that it achieves its full objective. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Eric. Lee says it's going away, so I'll give him. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Honorable nominee. Honorable nominee, you agree with me that illegal mining has had a serious effect on food production and incomes of farmers. To what extent do you see this activity as a national security threat?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's quite elementary. We require poison-free water to irrigate our farms. This is the case where our rivers are being polluted, and it prevents the farmers from using the cyanide-infested waters to irrigate. So clearly, the effect of, then you also have the galamsey itself, which is degrading our lands. In fact, we are losing a lot of lands, a lot of cocoa lands to galamsey. So the threat is evident and elementary, we all know. It's a national security threat to our survival and our existence. What do we do? Are we doing enough? I think that's something for us parliamentarians. We are not doing enough. Pass the laws, provide the funding so that those implementing agencies will have the right laws and right tools to do what they have to do for our collective security. Thank you.
For some time now, Honorable Kopoku and the rest, and the minority members on the Agri Committee have ask the government to go back to the lofty and wonderful idea it as a viable alternative to increasing food production in the country today, and also to some extent cocoa production.
I think the scales of our public purse, when not adjusted properly, will lead to an imbalance elsewhere. I am not in favor of 100% subsidy when it comes to fertilizer. We can't continue on that tangent. In fact, if you do, what are you trying to achieve? We might as well share the money for Ghanaians to go and buy their expensive food on the market, because when you pump that much fertilizer into the system, the farmers in our neighboring countries are the ones that are going to benefit, because everything is going to be smuggled out. And so fertilizer is not the way to go. However, we can look and the school farm was feeding us with our basic vegetables. Once in a while, we get some good chicken from there. If we had programs like that, and government wants to subsidize the production of vegetables in schools and wants to contribute fertilizer for that, then we can understand. But on a mass scale, as giving fertilizer to Ghanaian farmers, I don't think is a way to go. Thank you.
Chair, my final question. The Honourable Nominee has conceded to the fact that there is increase in prices of food on the market. I am saying we can go into that. Do you see it as critical as far as income levels are concerned? And if it is critical, what do you think government should do in the do not impact too much on the pocket of workers?
I think what the production down, because there are other factors that lead to price increase. The logistics, price of fuel, transportation, and to some effect greed are the ones that are contributing to the hikes on the market. And we all go to the markets. But if the production, the cost of production itself is reduced through increased yield. So if you are getting, for example, 1 bag of maize per acre, and with improved seeds, you are now getting 5 bags of maize per acre, then it means that the cost of production has gone down. And that is why I said when I was answering Honorable Eric Opoku that I'm going to focus immediately on improved seeds so that I can increase the yields to bring the cost of production down. And as the economy normalizes, some of the factors that are also contributing to the hikes in price will also normalize. Fertilizer that used to be $160 per bag is now hovering around, in fact, shot up to about 600, and the price is also dropping. As the global logistics problems are calming down, the price of NPK fertilizer is also dropping. So the factors that were contributing to the increase in price are beginning to normalize. And perhaps for the first time, you saw food inflation also going down in about 8 months or so. So as things normalize, the prices will come down. But with a push of improved seeds, I believe that it will go down much faster. Thank you.
Okay. Very well. Welcome. I don't know if the question has been asked, but there's this
issue in air, especially being propagated by some of our colleague MPs, that through your activities, people died in Ayawaso, West Wogo. How many people died?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a question that I was expecting from the right. From my right. From my right. That's, from the left is very painful. I am not aware, and perhaps say on authority, that nobody died on the incident at Ayawaso, West Wogon. Not a single person that I am aware of was reported dead. Not to say that the unfortunate incidents were justified, but in answering your direct question, not a single person that I am aware of died. Thank you.
So all those allegations are really false, because it was put out there and your picture was next to it as if the Bryan Acheampong has caused deaths. But it's good that we set the record straight that that is you. That's yours. My second question, my source of information.
Chairman, it should whoever said.
Can I regulate, please? Proceed with your question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You are going to a ministry that has recently got a lot of media space about this huge issue about cocoa roads. Do you think Cocoa Board should be funding cocoa roads? Because I do not hear fishing roads or shea butter roads or energy or petrol roads. Do you think Cocoa Board should still be financing cocoa roads? And what are you going to do about, what new ideas do you have about the debt of the cocoa roads vis-a-vis the whole debt restructuring program? Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Chairman. I know about energy roads. Yes, enclave roads. I know about that. Yes, I am in support of Cocoa Board funding some critical infrastructure for as long as it facilitates the movement of cocoa products. I cannot support board funding asphalt roads in Accra, but I will support Cocoa Board funding an access road in Asankragua or wherever cocoa is grown. Sankwari. That I can support. I am getting the briefing on the cocoa road briefed on it. It looks quite substantial, but I am also aware that the cocoa bills have been added to the government debt. If Minority Leader will note to that the cocoa bills have been added to the government debt, just like the ESLA and the Dachi, they've all been added to the government debt. And there's a program around this government debt restructuring. So I pray that by the time all this thing is over, Cocoa Board will have a new leash on life to be able to execute its mandate. Thank you.
Chairman, thank you.
Susu.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Congratulations once again to the Honorable Nominee. Honorable nominee, you were the Minister for National Security, the Minister at the Presidency in charge of National Security, is that correct?
The Ministry of National Security.
At the Ministry of National Security. So, what would be your take on the conflict in Boko and its impact on agriculture, and how do you propose to deal with that as an incoming Minister of Agric?
I like the linkage that you are trying to make with Boko and agriculture. But the fact remains that if there's conflict, there can't be agriculture. So I will just, if I have the opportunity, thanks to you, to be approved and sit with the National Security Minister, I will make a strong case to him the impact of such a conflict on agriculture and by extent our food security. That is how far I can go on that.
Nominee. Secondly, when you look at the major flagship programs of the government in agriculture, and you look at the various reports when it comes to food security or food insecurity, it almost looks like those programs failed to meet their targets. Because when you take a look at the budget statement, the 2023 budget statement, particularly look at paragraph 515, a lot of funds have been committed to these major government flagship programs. However, in terms of food insecurity, Ghana is gradually declining on all the major reports. When you look at the 2020 Comprehensive Food Security and Vulnerability Analysis, I mean, Ghana has declined consistently. So, would you kindly, I mean, assure the committee what you will do different food security in Ghana?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will rely on the Ministry of Food and Agriculture's report and that of the Ghana Statistical Service. And if you look at the Ministry of Food and Agriculture's report, in the last 6 years, we've achieved surpluses in almost all the crops except for rice. The growth rate has been about 6% on the average compared to about 2.8% in 2016. But if you look at the quantum of money that sits on the budget and then conclude that a lot of money has been pumped into the Ministry of Agric, and therefore we should see a corresponding output, it becomes a problem because, Mr. Chairman, you have about 600, the Pualugu Dam, the Pualugu Irrigation Project, which costs about 5 billion Ghana cedis, is sitting on the books of the Ministry of Agriculture as contingent liability. And as and when certificates are submitted, it matures. It's actually added to the outstanding liabilities of the ministry. And so you will see that the ministry's budget expenditure line will look huge, but it is all not going towards the planting for food and agriculture. And it's one of the things that I'm going to plead with Parliament to accept for the Pualugu Dam project be taken off the books of the Ministry of Food and Agriculture, because it says there it's huge, and it makes everybody think that the ministry is getting so much money, and therefore, justifiably, they expect so much from them, when in fact, the dam is actually benefiting us in other areas. So that is how come you see that huge figure, and justifiably your expectations of that. But to add, Honorable, there's really no food shortage in the system. I mean, if you drive Accra to Cape Coast, Accra to Tamale, there's availability of food. We've mentioned earlier that the challenge that we're having is and things are normalizing, and with our leadership, it will improve for our entire food security. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I still want to remain on food insecurity. The reason being that it is so fundamental to every nation, and given the fact that you look at the disturbances in the sub-region, is so key that as a people we would be concerned about insecurity of food. And the reason why I'm saying that is that food security or food insecurity is not necessarily about non-availability of food. It's the risk of the risk is actually published by the government of Ghana. It's actually a document website that I got this latest information. Very on. In that report, it reports that out of the population of Ghana, about 3.6 million people are at risk of food insecurity. What kind of leadership are you bringing to the ministry? What kind of leadership are you bringing to the ministry to ensure that Ghanaians will not be at risk of food insecurity?
Thank you, Honorable Member. If you read the same report, I'm privy to that report. If you read the same report, you realize that it says, I think about 15 years ago, the numbers were actually much higher. It was about 5 million. 5 million people were food insecure. And as at 2020, it's 11.9% or so, which contributes to about 3.5 million. The report also states that food insecurity is more prevalent in the 5 northern regions, Upper West, East, Northern, Savannah regions, in the same report. So I'm privy to that report. But we cannot discount the contribution that the PFJ has made to bring the numbers down. And I'm assuring you that, in fact, the more time I waste here, the more the numbers go up. Then I'm going to put a lot of energy to ensure that that number in the next 2 years is halved, if not eliminated. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Minister nominee, congratulations, my brother. Are you privy to Wasu West Wogon events? And if you are,
Mr. Chairman, the question again is coming from my left. It's very painful. Mr. Chairman, Ayawaso has been my Waterloo. It's something that more than 500 pages. And my name was not mentioned anywhere in the report as having done anything. In fact, if you look at the findings, and I have a copy, an abridged version of the findings here. If you look at the findings of the report, Mr. Chairman, except for Chapter 3, Findings and Recommendations, Mr. Chairman, except for Chapter 3, Findings and Recommendations, bullet point 1.7. The Chairman, for the record, I want to read. In this regard, the Commission finds that these persons the SWAT team were deployed and commanded by a police officer named DSP Samuel Azugu under the authority of the Director of Operations of the National Security Secretariat. It continues to say that, and with the ultimate responsibility of the Minister of State for National Security. Honorable Chairman, I'm not too sure what the Minister of State for National Security is doing here in these findings, because there's no evidence was adduced in the committee to suggest that the Minister of State for the Ministry of National Security was in fact the authority under which the SWAT people, I'm talking about the functional organogram of the Ministry of National Security. There's no evidence to suggest so. That I was responsible. The Director of Operations is under the command of the Minister of State of National Security. And the Minister of State of National Security is under the command of the Minister of National Security. And the Minister of National Security is under the command of the President. And so on and so forth. Where does it end? And why would they come and end it at my doorstep? Not being part of the operation, not being part of the command on that day, to come and place a finding that and the Minister of State must have ultimate recommendations that were made. It frightens me. Of course, the issue of facts that I have against it. They did not recommend my prosecution because there was no facts to support that. But they placed an individual liability on me. And the individual liability is born out of the fact that, Mr. Chairman, and I read, the Commission recommends that Mr. Bryan Acheampong be reprimanded for his ultimate responsibility as minister in authorizing an operation of that character on a day of an election in a built-up area. Mr. Chairman, even in the unlikely event that I was a minister asked to be reprimanded for, it's not a crime.
Honorable, my interest is not the speculation. Did you authorize that operation?
Mr. Chairman, I did not authorize that operation, and that is why it was easy for the white paper to say that they reject the recommendation because it is without basis. But I must add that The Ayawaso incident is a blot on our democracy. I pray that it doesn't happen again. I sympathize with those who were wounded on that day. Indeed, when I was there at the Ministry of National Security, I ensured that all those who were wounded were treated at the 37 military hospital, and all expenses of such were paid by the state. Who were wounded on that day. Indeed, when I was there at the Ministry of National Security, I ensured that all those who were wounded were treated at the 37 military hospital, and all expenses of such were paid by the state that authorized the operation. Subsequent to that, Mr. Chairman, laws have been passed by this House, and today we no longer hear about vigilantism the way we used to hear about it in the past. It was unfortunate it happened. It should never have happened, but be that it may, it's past and gone. But where the liability is being placed is where I think is misplaced. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I'm happy with your response. Mr. Chairman.
Second. Patrick, just a second. Chairman, please, the honorable nominee in his answer indicated that the state paid for the authorized operation. Was he referring to surgery? Medical. You mean the surgery that was conducted? I just wanted a clarification, please.
Indeed, I am aware, because I was briefed, that all those who were wounded were taken care of at 37 and all their bills were paid. That is what I was told, and I believe in the briefing that I was giving.
Thank you, Chairman. Honorable Acheampong, in 2011, Biosafety Act was passed by the Parliament of this country. 2014, field trials had started with GM rice and cowpeas in Ashanti region and cotton in the 3 northern regions. Subsequently, there were protests by the Catholic Bishops' Conference and food sovereignty non-governmental organization, to the extent that an injunction was placed on this process. We have 2 schools of thought on this very beautiful program of GMOs. What is your take on that? And are you interested in revisiting that issue, which is stalled? Thank you.
When it's hazardous to our population, Parliament set up the authority. They are competent and technical enough to advise a minister, and whatever decision that is being made because of the public coming from the Biosafety Authority. Thank you.
Thank you. Chairman, my last question. Two. My last question. Are you challenging the chairman? Honorable nominee, I see the good people and the chiefs from Kwahu right behind you. And I know Afram Plains, or Kwahu North, is a very, very important area in terms of food production in this country. Government has secured a loan to even construct a bridge across the river. And we vetted Honorable Afri Akoto here. We asked him questions about the Kwahu North Plains and also the Accra Plains. I don't think you have more than 2 years at the ministry, God willing. What can you do within this space of time to turn around the fortunes of these 2 planes for Ghanaians to remember you for? Thank you very much and congratulations.
I am a crew and save for not being accused of conflict of interest by pushing a lot of agric to farm planes. I would like to generalize the answer that I am going to ensure that there's food safety in the next 2 years. Thank you. Food security, not safety, food security in the next 2 years.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Honorable nominee, it is trite learning that fertilizer application is time-bound. Over the past 3 or so years, anytime government releases these fertilizers to the rural people, most of the time for fertilizer application is gone. What will you do if you are given the nod to ensure the timeous supply of fertilizer to the local people, like people of Tobodom, Jamatimponim, among others? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The longer I stay before this committee, the more it delays in the approving of the fertilizer procurement. So if you can discharge me now, I will immediately go and work on it to ensure that fertilizer is available for the crop farming.
All right.
Thank you. Bryan Acheampong. So far, you've answered quite a number of questions on the thorny issue of Ayawaso West Wagon by-election. I just want to find out from you, and you did say, if I am quoting you right, that the Ayawaso was and remains a blot on our conscience. At the heart of the Ayawaso West Wagon by-election debacle is about how election security in this country ought to be managed. And we saw, again, a repetition of what happened in Ayawaso, in Techima and Saf. In Techima and Saf, we're not too fortunate. We lost quite a number of lives. Going through your CV clearly is very rich. I would say you pass for a security couple, given your background, fact of having served at the National Security Ministry, the Interior Ministry, your previous training at the Air Force of the United States, etc. What do you think should be done so far as the management of election security is concerned to forestall a repetition of Ayawaso and even Techima and Saf?
Thank you, Honorable Agaga. I sat with you on the Defense and Interior Committee, and I had prepared, honestly, on a straight tangent of agric and food security. If I had been prepped that a question will have a linkage between Ayawaso, Techima, and Etiwa East and how it affects agric, I'm sure I would have been, I'll train myself on that. But forgive me if I plead with you to stay in the lane of agriculture for today. I'm grateful.
Mr. Speaker, given the background of the nominee, yes, admittedly, he's going to serve at the Ministry of Food and Agriculture if given the nod. But you see, the purpose of him is to afford us the opportunity to tease out what is done previously, and if he has some experiences to share, he's asked to share those experiences.
Honorable, you're asking him what he will do in the future. And in particular, as a sector, somebody else is responsible. If he makes a comment or suggests something, it may become a basis for comparing him and that other person. So I suggest that you ask
withdraw
another
the question.
Ask another question.
Very well. Mr. Speaker, then this shouldn't pass for my first question, so that I can ask a different question. No, first question. Oh. Well, honorable nominee. In fact, when you were nominated by the president to serve in the Ministry of Agric, of course, subject to parliamentary approval, quite a number of people said so many things. And they did that because of your background. One notable who had something to say and their expectations. The nod was Dr. Adam Bona, and Adam Bona is somebody I think you should know very well because he operates within the space that you are very familiar with. Adam had this to say, and Mr. Chairman, with your kind permission, I would quote him. My expectations are that he will right the wrongs at the Agric Ministry. I am not expecting the Minister-designate for Agric to go and also turn the Agric Ministry into a farm gate. I am expecting him to come up with policies. I am expecting him to ensure that the smuggling of cocoa beans, and my emphasis, the smuggling of cocoa beans will be stopped, and that using his security knowledge, he will be able to stop the flow of stolen fertilizers that we use taxpayers' money to import. I am expecting him to ensure that those who are benefiting largely from the smuggling of fertilizers, he will stop it, get them arrested and prosecuted. Honorable Bryan Acheampong, you heard Dr. Adam Bona loud and clear. To the smuggling of cocoa beans across our borders and fertilizers. This has a linkage with security, with the greatest of respect.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. When you mentioned the name of Adam Bona, I panicked because I have not heard him say any good thing about me in a long time. So I will call him and commend him for this palatable statement. As one of hope and believe that Bryan is an action man that will get this done. If there's smuggling, you can be sure that with my background and experience, I'll work with the system to make sure that it's dealt with. I have become aware, yesterday somebody told me that it's not just smuggling alone, legitimate export of our produce, that there are trucks in Techiman and up there carting our rice to Nigeria and to Burkina and all that. And if they can see me and hear me, they should be on alert that if this committee approves me, hopefully, it's going to come to an end. It's going to come to an end. It shall come to an end.
Honorable nominee, honorable, a follow-up, sorry. Okay. Honorable nominee, this morning, and I say I am making reference to what transpired in the morning because you are a member of the appointments committee. The Minister-designate for Trade and Industry spoke about import substitution, and he made specific reference to rice farming. Now, I come from a part of the country where we are endowed with fertile lands for rice farming. I'm talking about the Fumbisi, Bedembilisi valleys, and Honorable Patrick Boama is aware about the valleys. Those valleys stretch from Bulsa land all the way into Mampurugu. So you have Yagaba Kubore. There are about 7 valleys, and agricultural experts have said that if those valleys are put to good use, Ghana could feed the whole of West Africa with rice. Now, I've asked the former Minister for Agric, unfortunately for us, the road network linking those fertile valleys and the network runs through Navrongo, through to Sandema, Fumbisi, Yaraba Kubore. It's very bad, in terrible shape. Honorable Minister, first, what would you do to ensure that the potential of the valleys are fully tapped? And 2, what would you do to improve upon the road network? 2 questions in one.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The first thing I want to do is to inspect the farms of Honorable Agauga. Since there are such fertile lands in his constituency, you must have some farms. And I'm going to encourage you any way that I can. But Mr. Chairman, we consume about 1.5 million metric tons of rice per annum. Yet we produce less than half of the valley. Tanku, yes, it's big in our agric, in rice farming. We are going to support individuals to go into large-scale rice farming. We're going to take full advantage of the valley. It's Ghana. We're going to take full advantage of it to ensure that just that valley alone will be able to feed or meet that 1.5 metric tons that we consume, so that everything else that is produced down south can serve as a buffer. But it is my hope that within these 2 years, whatever investment that the government and Parliament can put in to ensure that we dedicate that area to meet that target, since our colleagues that we should be able to do it. It's just a matter of will and leadership. Rice farming has not much to do with money, and with the right leadership, we have the fertile soil, 1.5 million metric tons, and with your support and that of the Agri Committee, I believe that we should be able to do it. Trust me on that.
My last question.
Oh, I've already had a lot.
Mr. Speaker, the first one was overruled.
Please.
Mr. Chairman, I thank you. Honorable Bryan Acheampong, I congratulate you on your nomination. Just some preliminary comments. I take inspiration from past military officers who have served as ministers for Agric. In particular, I know about Colonel Banasco, who was Minister for Agric in 1973, Commissioner for Agric. And then later he became the Commissioner for Cocoa Affairs. You can find... Oh, I'm not a small boy. Oh. Colonel Banasco, later, you know, Major retired Kwashiga also became Minister for Agric. I think that Ende Kenolo Bimpe was also there. All these people were very, very successful, as far as the agri ministry is concerned. So I believe that with your background in the military, you will be able to, bring your military experience to bear. But between Ghana and La Côte d'Ivoire, we account for not less than 60% of the world production of cocoa between Ghana and La Côte d'Ivoire. Now you compare it to OPEC countries. OPEC countries are responsible for just about 30% of the global oil production. But they call the shots as far as prices are concerned. They determine outputs, whether they should increase output, they should reduce output, and so on and so forth. Now 60%, we don't have a say. As a matter of fact, we are even in a competition as to who will produce more, without looking at how to control prices of cocoa. Should this committee grant approval, what would you do to roll back some of these, imbalances as far as the global trade of cocoa is concerned?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
I am still getting briefings on the ministry and its agencies, and I cannot confess to be in everything, and so I really don't want to make a comment on this matter, insofar as there are aspects in the ministry and government may have taken a position already, and then a minister-designate for agriculture is now professing another tangent to the matter. If you approve me, I will, of course, listen to the aspects and then the government position on the matter and support whatever the government is doing to right the wrong, so to say. And so I don't want to sit here and make new policy directions on what I'm going to do, but I'm sure that government has a position on this matter already, and I'm going to champion that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, my next question to the nominee has to do with his business interests. Now, I've been to a place. Are you the owner of the place? Before I proceed to my next question, do you own Rock City?
Proudly so, Mr. Chairman.
Now, that humongous edifice that I saw belongs to you. Now, what is going to happen to Rock City? Are you going to leave it in the hands of third parties? I mean, are you sure that you will be able? Are you sure that you can have your eye on the ministry and not put any eye on Rock City? Because that is quite a colossal investment. I believe it's one of the largest in Africa, if not the largest. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I carry the vision, and aspects are running Rock City, and so shall it be. Thank you.
Now, Mr. Chairman, my last question. I've done two. Mr. Chairman, no, this one is a very straightforward question. You have less than 2 years to serve, in this ministry. Should the committee approve of you, what legacy would you want to be remembered for in the event that you stay in the ministry until this government, term expires? Thank you. Mr. Chairman, that will be all.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Flowing from the statistics that Honorable Sosu queried about, it is my vision that those numbers will be halved so that there's food security in this country. I'm praying that within these 2 years, I'll be able to lay a solid foundation for large-scale agriculture. And if God is kind to the MPP, continue to be able to, or any Ghanaian for that matter, that occupies that position, will carry on the vision of large-scale commercial agriculture. Mr. Chairman, in the next 2 years, improved yields is something that I'm going to focus on. God is not making any more land, so we need to get producing maize at 3 metric tons per hectare. It is my hope that we'll be able to move it to have improved seeds made in Ghana, not anywhere else. That will give us a yield of about 10 metric tons. And so for all the cereals and everything that is in our various food baskets. The food baskets differ from the south to the middle belt to the north. Everybody has a different food basket. But to make sure that we have enough food in the system, enough in buffer, and enough that we are able to export. If anything at all, I should be able to set the foundation for these things to take off. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the opportunity. The Honorable nominee and I began our PhD together at the University of Ghana, Legon, in the same class. Unfortunately, on my part, he has gone further than I have gone. He has gone through almost all his, steps to be called. I'm still in the process. Mr. Chairman, I have been listening to the nominee answer questions on Ayawaso Wagon. And Mr. Chairman, after Ayawaso Wagon, where a number of people were injured, came the general elections, where over 5 people were killed and over 15 people injured. The honorable nominee until today was on record to have described what happened at Ayawaso as the most peaceful by-election ever. And I will quote some of the things that he said when he appeared before the committee that seemed like accepting responsibility. Quote, "We deploy men, and some of them had marks. It is not like they came from somewhere put there." Today I hear him say that what happened in Ayawaso was a blot on our democracy. My first question, I agree that the scenes that they were also prejudicial to the interests of the state.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. When I speak for national security, I speak for the establishment. When I say we, I'm talking about how things are done at the Ministry of National Security or the National Security Council Secretariat for that matter. I am not talking about how I do things. And that must be put in proper context. So if I say that national security deploys for by-elections, in my time, there was only one by-election. But when I was speaking, I spoke for all by-elections. It doesn't mean that I was deploying for the other by-elections. But I kept on saying we, because the collective. Oh, I have to speak. In fact, that almost landed me in trouble at the commission. But I never said I said we. And when I say we in this context, I'm talking about the Ministry of National Security.
Mr. Chairman, my question is, does he agree with me that a blot as a it was on our democracy, was it also prejudicial to the interest of the state? Does he agree?
Mr. Chairman, I need guidance on this one.
I don't know, maybe he has the prejudicial in respect of what? Maybe you'll explain further.
Was it in the interest of the state? I'm sure that we know the meaning of prejudicial. It's an English word.
What prejudicial in favor of the state?
Was it detrimental to the state?
In terms of security or what?
The chairman, in as much as we are trying to have a good image for our country, any bad publicity for our country is bad for Ghana. That much I can say. And therefore, if I say it's a blot on our democracy, then that is how injured, and it should never. That should not be how our elections are conducted. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, so I've heard the nominee. He may not use the word prejudicial, but he agrees that it was detrimental to the interest of the state. Mr. Chairman, I may have also heard him talk about why he should not personally be held responsible for what happened, because he may have had, in his words, other supervisors senior to him. He's even gone to the extent of making reference to the president, who is the commander-in-chief, and all of that. But I've heard him, Mr. Speaker, and I think we've all heard him. But, Mr. Speaker, there is a commission of inquiry report. And all that he says, Mr. Chairman, on this table and outside this table do not amount to stepping aside the commission of inquiry report. And the finding, 3.3, paragraph 36, is clear that the commission recommends that Mr. Bryan Acheampong be reprimanded for his ultimate responsibility as minister in authorizing an operation of that character on a day of an election in a built-up area. That is the recommendation, or that is the finding. I mean, those are, that is the recommendation based on findings that the Commission of Inquiry made. Mr. Speaker, I go back to my popular constitutional article today, 94 2D. And I ask prejudicial to the interest of the state for good reason. If we all agree, Mr. Chairman, that it was a blot, it was instrumental to the interest of the state, this Commission of Inquiry report says that he should be held responsible and should be reprimanded. First of all, was he reprimanded? And since this
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to provide my schoolmate and classmate some education, since I have gone a little further than him. If you look at the constitutional provision, and this is not to justify in any way what happened at Ayawaso. That is not what I seek to do. But if you look at the constitutional provision 280C, it says that the Commission of Inquiry shall furnish in the report the reasons leading to the conclusions stated in the report. That is 280C. That if there's a finding, you provide reasons for those findings, and then you make recommendation. And I'm saying that in the 500-plus report, me having authorized anything anywhere in the report. So everybody, including myself, was surprised and afraid that my name found expression in the conclusion that I should be reprimanded. And that is why my classmates, if you look at the commission, the white paper that cleared, it says that the commission, the government rejects, emphasis rejects, the commission's recommendation on paragraph 8.3 because the commission failed to establish the factual basis for that recommendation. That is what the white paper said. That you say we should reprimand him for authorizing an operation in a built-up area, but we reject it because you have not provided any reason to support that assertion. So yes, I have been cleared by the white paper, which forms part of the commission's report. But notwithstanding the report in itself and the white paper, it's my conscience that I have to live with. It's me, Bryan Acheampong, the Presbyterian, notwithstanding everything that I am known for. I have to be able to live with myself. I am a man, I'm responsible for what I do. I cannot be responsible for what everybody else does. And I'm saying that for what was on, I did not authorize it. I didn't know anything about it. When I had opportunities to speak, I spoke in a collective that yes, the operation, and I said at an FM station in Nkoko that I was unhappy with the way the operation was carried out, and that if I was there responsible and in theater, that I would have done a much finer job than those there did. So yes, there was a commission of inquiry. Yes, they made some findings without basis. Yes, they made some recommendations. Yes, the white paper was written, and it cleared me that there was no factual basis for what they were asking the government to do. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I move on to my last question. Maybe this relates to hundreds of acres, so I don't get my at all. Paddy rice. The paddy rice that was produced last season do not have a market. Because government has directed that none should cross our borders. Yet,
I've become aware of this situation, and I know that the Nigerian rice traders are on the market buying our rice. Even though we are complaining that we don't have enough rice to feed ourselves. I don't know if the ministry will be comfortable with what I'm saying. The deputy minister is here. But I found out that, and the deputy minister of finance is also here, so this may put me in trouble. But it's quite nauseating that as we speak, we have a great machinery that the people of the good people of Ghana paid for, and it includes machinery that can be used to process some of this rice, and it's still sitting at the ports. Mr. Chairman, I know that the Deputy Finance Minister will be very talking about until such a time that the private sector have the capacity to mail our rice to feed into the population. I will act on it, Honorable Suhini. I shall. Thank you very much.
Very well. My deputy wants to. Go elsewhere. I'll give him the chance to ask 3 questions and continue.
You've hidden your talent, your capacity, and your assertiveness. And today, you have lifted the veil. And you've left nobody here in any doubt.
Let me ask you a question.
First, how did you react to yesterday's press statement from Honorable Fifi Kwete regarding the position of his party vis-a-vis this morning's press conference by the minority? Proud to your being here.
Mr. Chairman, I have been in conclave preparing for this vetting, and I have not been apprised of a statement by Fifi Kwete or a press conference by the minority leader. I'm sure that after this meeting, I will be properly briefed, but I've been in conclave preparing seriously for this, and I'm not aware of any such statements.
So now, Honorable Nominee, do you feel very relieved that today you've had the opportunity to tell the whole of Ghana that indeed you were not implicated in this Ayawaso West Wugon matter, and that the Constitution and the white paper put together, you are qualified to hold this office, and that there is no such constitutional injunction by operation of Article 94 or that of 280 C and D?
The Presbyterian God is a powerful one, and I knew that a day will come.
Oh, no, but hold on. Is it Presbyterian what? The Presbyterian. Is that what you're suggesting?
Mr. Chairman, I believe it is the same God. Presby Nyame, Asumdwe Nkao. And I knew a day will come when I'll get the opportunity to explain and lift the veil of the propaganda surrounding the Ayawaso West Wugon. And I'm grateful that I have the opportunity today. For those who want to be even provide the opportunity. But as long as I've been heard and my conscience is clear, I think I'll on. But secondly, on the matter of me being indicted, I think I applied to become a candidate of the New Patriotic Party during the 2020 election. From becoming a minister of state. Thank you.
Now, you've spoken a lot about agriculture, the fact that you want to provide leadership for the purpose of food security. Now, we know that cash crop is critical for our foreign exchange support, especially cocoa as a cash crop. You've talked about how Galamsey has affected cocoa production. You have received some briefing from Cocoa Board, correct? Before I proceed.
Not much to be able to speak to a lot of happenings in Cocoa Board.
Now, since technology is now the key driving force in want to impress on Cocoa Board to embrace technology as a main tool in one, checking on their costs and also improving on production, as well as dealing with issues of waste. Would you entreat them to make it a priority?
Honorable Chairman, the Deputy Minority Leader knows my background in IT. In fact, my PhD is in information systems. And you can be sure, and I see the CEO of Cocoa Board is also here, that every discussion that I've had with him in the last 3 days has been focused on how we increase productivity. And every tool in the basket will be employed to ensure that we achieve that productivity. Thank you.
Chair, my last question. Honorable nominee, the private sector approach is different from the public sector approach. Your vision in the private sector will not be the same in the public sector. So, two-in-one question. One, how do you hope to use this drive in the past you were a minister of state. Now you are going to be a cabinet minister. You are not reporting to a minister. You are now going to drive the vision of the president and your own vision in a sector which is very key. So that is the first of the two. Second, from the briefing you've had, are there still donor support for agro-related programs, such as chemical supply, fertilizers, and other inputs for farmers?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Chairman, I have a background in business, but one of the businesses that I have done in the past, a company called Into IT, have worked on a lot of IT projects with government. To chip in, my PhD focused on that because I was able to unearth that if you sharpen your vision, share it, you the vision of government is sharpened, explained, the objectives so set, and I lead the team in the ministry, the same team, to achieve a different, much higher productivity. In fact, if you look at my background, I did a project at the Controller and Accountant General's Department, it was not possible to solve these ghost names problems. It had bedeviled this country for so many years. In the last 8 years, my software have removed about 6. Mr. Chairman, before we started, it looked impossible. But we studied so I have an experience with working with people and working with the public servants. And I believe that this same skill will lead me to achieve the set objectives of government in the Ministry of Food and Agriculture. Yes, there are donor funds at the ministry. The ministry is executing several projects that are being funded by the European Union, the World Bank, and others. In fact, in the last couple of years, there have been some gaps in some funding that we received from the EU. We're going to work on all that to make sure that as things normalize around the world, we have a fair share to drive our agri productivity in Ghana. And I'm sure that as we do that, there will be more opportunities for fertilizer and all the interest that private business people have in the country. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, thank you so much for the opportunity. Honorable Bryan, Acheampong, I wish you many accomplishments. You've made it. You've made all of us proud. A Kwewu businessman and a Kwewu businessman and a
yes, Honorable Ayaga.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Chairman, I intend to bring the committee back to the Commission of Inquiry work. Mr. Chairman, the Constitution in Article 94 2 says that one will not be qualified to be a member of Parliament if he has been found by the report of a commission or a committee of inquiry to be incompetent to hold public office, or is a person in respect of whom a commission or committee of inquiry has found that while being a public officer, he acquired assets unlawfully or defrauded the state or misused or abused his office. Misused or abused his office. I'm repeating that. Misused or abused his office. Or willfully acted in a manner prejudicial to the interest of the state. And the findings have not been set aside on appeal or judicial review. So when a committee has found that you have misused or abused your office, the only circumstance under which you will escape is if you have appealed against the conclusions of, or you've got a judicial review and the judiciary have set aside those findings of the commission. And you have a timeline within which to go and have it set aside. There's a timeline. And if you look at Article 278, Article 278, that deals with commissions of inquiry. and 282, it is clear that you have a timeline of 3 months. After 6 months, because the president or the government must publish the findings of the commission paper within 6 months. If they don't publish it within the 6 months, then you who may have been finding has taken place in relation to your person, you must go to court and set it aside. Now, the committee, somebody mentions white paper. Interestingly, a white paper does not absolve an individual in respect of which there's a negative finding. White paper just states government's thought about the commission. Yes. So yes. Good. So I want to find out from you. The commission, you appeared before the commission, you testified, and in the end, the commission took a position that you should be reprimanded for the conduct of a Department of State that they concluded was under your authority. And therefore, you are liable for the misconduct of staff of that department, officers and men of that department. Did you take any step to set aside the finding of the commission in relation to yourself? Individuals.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My Harvard-trained friend has only attempted to obfuscate the issues, in a sense that 94D does not apply to me. The contents of 94D does not apply to me. As a public officer, I have not acquired any, I have not been found to have acquired any assets illegally, misused or abused my office, and or willfully acted in a manner prejudicial to the interests of the state. It does not apply to me. That notwithstanding, Mr. Yaga, it's not fair that if you are a minister of state at that level, or a supervisor, an IGP, CDS, and your men go on the field to execute an assignment and they misconduct themselves, and the policeman misconducts himself in Boko, and then the IGP is held liable, is reprimanded, that's not fair. It is true. It's just not fair. You can accuse him for not training his men, but you cannot place individual liability on such a person. It's not fair and it is not right. And that is the situation that I find myself, even if I authorize it. But in this case, it wasn't even me. That's a clear case of injustice, and that is what you should be fighting for me for.
Yes. So I'm fighting for you by drawing your attention to the fact that the Constitution has a provision, a remedy for you, which is that you must go and set aside those findings in relation to you. And you haven't gone to court to set aside those findings. There's a recommendation that says that you should be reprimanded. And you are saying that, look, I'm not responsible. So why am I being, why is there a directive that I should be reprimanded? And I'm saying that until you have gone to court to set aside that, you haven't gone to court to set aside that.
My Massachusetts colleague, I disagree with you, because I know that you're a constitutional person and you know the provisions of 285, and so we can
debate. Facts are there in 285, please.
Exactly, that is where I'm drawing your attention to 285. The finding of a commission of inquiry shall not have the effect of a judgment of the High Court as provided under Clause 2 of this article, unless 6 months have passed after the finding is made and announced to the public, or the government issued a statement in the Gazette and in the national media that it does not intend to issue a white paper on the report of the commission, whichever is the earliest. 6, the right of appeal conferred by 2 on a person against whom a finding has been made shall be exercisable within 3 months after the occurrence of either of the events described in Clause 5 of this article. So 285 is actually the one that says that you should go to court and set aside, and that if you don't go to court and set aside, you know, the negative finding stands.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm sure that if not for lack of time, my honorable senior will educate himself on 285B, and that should settle the matter. Thank you.
280 of getting lectured. 285B says the finding of a commission of inquiry shall not have the effect of a judgment of the High Court as provided under Clause 2 of this article, unless B, the government issues a statement in the Gazette and in the national media that it does not intend to issue a white paper on the report of the commission. Absolve you. How does that absolve you?
Hey,
So, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
The issue is that I have listened to the nominee repeatedly admit that findings were made against him, those findings were unfortunate and not grounded on the facts.
Please, let's
before the commission.
Let's correct the record. He has admitted that recommendations were made against him, not finding. There are two different things. And so I was actually going to ask him whether there were any findings. So when you finish.
Mr. Chairman, he's my friend, there's no doubt about that. But we're all doing our work here. So, Mr. Chairman, that's your ruling on the matter. But I thought he would have proceeded on an assumption that nothing there implicated him or anything of that sort. He should be held responsible. Yes, Mr. Chairman.
That's your first question.
Fourth question.
Yes.
No, Chairman, this is the same question.
Yes. This is the fourth time you have answered. Can you conclude so I move on?
No, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, it was just one question about the provisions.
No, you have asked 3 times. This is the 4th question. Kindly ask, next one. I conclude this one, so I move on.
No, Chairman, I'll leave this one so that it doesn't add as my additional question.
Very well, then let's go.
The second...
No, you have had 3 already. I was
Chairman.
ignoring the rule for you, but Chairman. If you are done, then I'm moving on.
No,
Please.
Chairman, it's the same subject matter.
We don't ask questions based on subject matter. You have 3 opportunities. You have exhausted them. You are actually on the 4th one. I ignore this, but please.
Just one, Chairman, just one. Not related to that, Chairman. Just one.
Very well. Yes.
Okay. So, my friend, Mr. Bryan, back to agriculture. But I advise you to go and set it aside. That's my advice to you. But on the issue of agriculture, have you thought about or asked yourself basically these questions? what should be the average calorie intake of every something? I'm building up something. No, they are interjecting. Have you asked yourself what size of land do we have to cultivate in Ghana to produce the quantity of food satisfying that average calorie intake of every Ghanaian? Do you know what size of land in Ghana agricultural activity to meet that calorie requirement of every Ghanaian? And the deficit, which should be your target in terms of increasing the farmland size, overall national farmland size. Have you thought about these basic technical questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm very happy about the concern expressed by my good friend Mahama Yariga, and such concern is captured in the advert. I'm grateful. I'm extremely satisfied in the recommendations in the white paper. But I will consult you after this if there's anything that I need to be aware of. But for now, I'm satisfied with the white paper. On the issue of calorie intake, I'm not too sure if we should start with OPK stomach or Honorable Dambochi. You can tell that averages are affected by extremes.
That's why we have average.
Yes.
So you take his stomach and the other stomach, and then you strike the.
We're looking at the male calorie intake of about 2,000 to 2,500, and a female of about 1,002 to 2,000. But I think
Ago.
On the go. You don't have to miss any of television, and relevant radio at your convenience. Subscribe to CityTube on YouTube, turn on your notification button, and receive prompts on our live streaming sessions and new content uploads. For easy access to the CityTube page, scan the QR code on your screens, subscribe to the CityTube page, and voila! Unlimited content awaits you. Don't forget to subscribe to CityTube for amazing content from Citi TV and Citi FM.
Citi TV is live on DSTV. Go to channel 363. On GoTV, access Citi TV on channel 182. On a digital TV, please press the menu button on the remote control and run a new search on your TV. Take note that without an antenna, you cannot access Citi TV on your television. Citi TV can be accessed on a free-to-air digital box like the GoTV and Star Times box. Citi TV, it's your world.
It has been procured, so I no longer own the software.
Provide any after-sales service to the software at all?
Naturally, if you understand anything about IT.
I do understand a bit.
Thank you, Mr. Architect. Honorable. You will realize that because of advancements in IT on a day-to-day basis, there has to be updates and upgrades. But the company that owns the software that I used to manage provides those updates and upgrades. It is not done by me.
You still have interest in that company? Do you still have an interest in that company that provides the after-sales service to the platform, the software?
Yes.
That's the answer I wanted. If you go to the report of the Commission on Inquiry into the IRSO 2019, precisely page 63, and I read from item 8.3.1, individual liabilities. The Commission recommends the criminal prosecution of Mr. Ernest Acheampong alias Dobo for the unauthorized possession of firearms under Section 1921 of the Criminal Offences Act. 2. 8.3.2. The Commission recommends the criminal prosecution for the offense of assault, to wit, the slapping of Mr. Samuel George by Mohammed Suleimana. 3. 8.3.3. The Commission recommends the immediate removal of DSP Samuel Kojo Azugu from command responsibilities at the Ministry of National Security, given his failure to appropriately command and control the SWAT team, of which he had charge during the operations of the Bawaleshi school police, reassigned by the IGP. It goes on and on and on. Whilst you were at the ministry, are you aware whether the two gentlemen who have been asked to be prosecuted, as a minister, what step did you take to actualize what government, the report recommended, together with your colleague, the Attorney General?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will take 8.3.1. And it does not apply to me, and I don't have any information on what the National Security Council Secretariat did.
I also don't know about what happened to Mohammed Suleimana, but I have a copy of the white paper, and I'm sure you do, and whatever was said about them. I also know that when it comes to double, the government recommended the government takes note of the commission's report and recommends it to the IGP for investigations, because he was accused of being in possession of a firearm that was established at the commission. But it will have to take an investigation to establish whether that firearm that was in his possession was authorized or not. So he was, in fact, the white paper agreed and recommended him to the IGP for investigations. I don't know what has happened of that. I think that is what I can say about those.
Okay, thank you very much. A day after the Ayawaso West Wagon incident, you were alleged to have said publicly that Honorable Sam George came to the polling station with motorbikes and macho men. At the committee hearing, this issue was raised. Were you able to prove whether what you said publicly could be the truth?
Mr. Chairman, in the preamble, he said that I was alleged to have said, unless he's repeating, he's making a quotation of what I might have said, then I can defend myself. But if we go on the tangent of defending allegations that he himself cannot substantiate.
Did you make any comment after the event that Honorable Sam George came to the polling station with motorbikes and macho men?
Not that I remember.
That doesn't mean you didn't say it either. Hold on. You don't know what I have.
Honorable Agweja, the question is not harmful. If I had said that he was on a motorbike or not, if I duly remember, I will admit that I remember. But I cannot remember. It doesn't mean that it's true or not true. But it's not harmful for me to deny it.
Okay. During the investigation, did your men tell you how Honorable Sam George came to the polling station?
I don't think it's consequential in this for me to have been told how people, the tens of dignitaries that came there, how they came there.
If we can prove to you that you did say that Honorable Sam George came there with motorbikes and macho men, will you be happy to apologize to him publicly?
Unless you are saying that.
Say this because you said you can't remember currently.
Unless you are saying that riding a motorbike is offensive, because that's also one of my favorite modes of transport.
I said motorbikes. I don't know how many people can ride two motorbikes at the same time. I said motorbikes and macho men. So it is not merely about him riding a motorbike as a means of transportation to the polling station.
Honorable Chairman, there is nothing wrong in riding a motorbike. There is nothing wrong as a member of parliament going around on election day with security. I don't see anything. I do it. Every politician has boys who follow him around on election day. Even if I may have said it accused him of something that he may not have done. And if my attention is drawn to it, I will apologize. But
there's really, I don't see where we're going with it. I'm sorry.
We can leave that one there. The 2nd of November 2017, 2nd November 2017, it has been published in Business Ghana that the Cocoa Board uncovers ghost Cocoa Road contracts under President John Mahama NDC government. Then on Citi News portal, October 5th, 2020, publication of Cocoa Road report depends on government. As the new minister taking over the very important entity as Cocoa Board, I've read the first one where the chief executive, fortunately he's still the chief executive, alleged that a government procured contracts under Cocoa Road, and he calls it ghost. Ghost, I haven't seen a ghost before. Basically, it means it doesn't exist. And then he actually, the Cocoa Board went ahead and set up a committee to investigate or audit the Cocoa Roads. Indeed, he admits that the report is ready. Yet they are saying that the Cocoa Road report is not for public consumption. May I ask you, because I've asked your predecessor a dozen times on the floor of Parliament. At a point in time, he said he's laid the report of Cocoa Road audit in Parliament, though nobody can find that report. May I ask you, if you get approval, will you confirm that you'll be kind enough to the people of this country to make the report of the Cocoa Road audit public so that people can see whether the ghost contracts under Cocoa Road exist or the chief executive misled the country? Will you make that commitment?
Mr. Chairman, with your kind permission, if we can let the CEO take the seat and answer.
Watch it. Now you have a role, and it says that will you publish if the report is available? Will you publish it? That's the answer.
Mr. Chairman, I'm hearing about this now. Every report produced in the ministry should be a matter for public consumption, especially to Parliament, if it has to do with cocoa and not classified by the state. So if there's a report, then it has to be read by Ghanaians, and Parliament must know about it. So I don't think that, unless there's something that I am not being told, but I can assure you that if there is a report, Parliament shall know about such report.
Thank you very much for your commitment. I appreciate that. Honorable, there's this issue also about your predecessor as his reaction to the food price inflation started a policy of selling some staple food, predominantly plantain, at the ministry, and he promised to repeat that at other places. Now that you are taking over, are you aware of that policy, and will you be continuing with that policy?
I read about it, but I don't really know much about it. But I read about it, I saw it on TV. Nicknames being called Bodiera and things like that.
The activity going on at the ministry, will you continue it? Selling the plantain at the ministry as an intervention?
I'm sure every leader and the tools that they apply to achieve their objectives. His predecessor may have done something different. He did something different. I will do something different.
My last question, I am here, I'm happy our senior brother, the road minister, is here. The issue of Cocoa Road is a very significant problem to this country. As a matter of fact, every government intervention you can talk of, whether it's healthcare, education, agriculture,
tourism would depend on good roads. I am happy the Cocoa Board actually offered to intervene by awarding Cocoa roads. The last time he met us, he gave us a figure of roughly 14.511 billion. That is the total commitment of Cocoa Road projects under the Cocoa Road, which you are coming to inherit. I know in the past, the government of President Mahama was accused of awarding Cocoa roads to the tune of about 5 billion. Now we are almost at 15 billion. How do you intend to service the contractors, certificates, and other things, and still get the roads done if you are given the nod?
Honorable, Ministry of Agric is a huge ministry. In the last week, in fact, I entered the ministry to get briefing just about 5 days ago. It's just too much information overload. Kindly, knowing my scale and my commitment, approve me, and I will ensure that whatever needs to be done in the interest of this republic shall be done.
And I don't have any further questions for our colleague.
Chairman, let me thank you for the opportunity and commend my good friend for the nomination. And clearly he has shown demonstrable powers. And I'm surprised. I'm totally amazed that my questions are coming. The agric sector, the strength shown is just amazing. But of agro insurance index has become very popular on the continent, and I'm told there have been an amendment to the Insurance Act inputting this as a relevant element. What is your thinking, and have you something that you have thought about, given the nod? What will you do to sustain it as a very good concept in developing our agriculture sector?
At this point in our agricultural evolution, the economic security of the farmers must be sustained in order for them to continue to remain in agriculture. If it is not attractive, there will be no farmers. And so if I'm not aware of this scheme, but I think that is a laudable idea. If there can be any insurance policy that guarantees an income for the farmers in the event of post-harvest losses or seasonal losses, then it's something that has to be encouraged. Bushfires, galamsey, all kinds of things that are happening to farmers. If that policy is available, that is something that I really want to look into and support. But I have not been briefed about it, but I think that is a wonderful idea.
Okay. Honorable nominee, extension officers, I'm sure you are aware of the impact they play in the scheme of things. A number of reports have confirmed that the recruitment of extension officers has become quite a challenge. Do you intend to bring any different thinking or approach in terms of their recruitment?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think it has to do with the attractiveness of that occupation. I remember when I was in Presec, we had agric extension 3 come to. I'm not saying prefect. I'm saying student. Come to the school to help us in the school farm. We used to go there quite often to work with them. But my sense in that career field is that people are no longer interested in it because it's not attractive.
I think my responsibility as a leader is to find a way to make that career field attractive so that these extension officers can get on the job, help farmers achieve the results that we as a people, we want to achieve. And if I am able to refine that career field to get more young people to be interested in extension, agric extension work, I think that I would have achieved. It is not just agric extension, even the veterinary services. As we speak, we have a deficit of about 1,800 people that, with the nod of the Deputy Finance Minister, I know if I'm approved this week, next week I'll get a financial clearance to get these people, these veterinary officers in to do the job as required by the Republic. So, Honorable Leader, that is how I will answer that question, that we need to make extension services attractive so that they can deliver on their mandate.
You are very reputable, and I bear witness to that. What is it that you will distill from your successful business life to be applied to this new sector, if you are gracious enough to?
No, though. I think that question has been asked, yeah. So,
okay.
Can I ask another one?
Mr. Chair, let me go on to the thinking generally in this country about agriculture. You know, generally, most farmers, the average farmer, do not appreciate farming as a business. How or what do you think you can bring on board differently for our farmers, will you do differently? And I heard you loud and clear when you said attractiveness of the sector, extension officers, because the business is not attractive, people are not encouraged to go into it. What will you do to change the concept and the way we appreciate farming, generally?
I think business has everything. If you want to take agric as a business, then you are looking at the rewards. It is the rewards that will keep people on the job to continue to produce for themselves and invariably for our food security, if you are looking at agriculture as a business. And therefore, as a leader of a ministry, my job is to make sure that they continue to get that reward that they seek. You should know that a businessman who is involved in agriculture, his first interest or primary interest is not to feed the country. His primary interest is to make money, and therefore make that reward available. Get NAPCO to buy their farm produce as and when they have excess. Make sure that at least the government infrastructure, school feeding, police, military, prisons are all taking advantage of the produce that our farmers produce, so that they don't produce, it goes to waste, and then the following year you expect them to go back and plant. My job is to make sure that I provide the leadership that whatever they produce, there will be market for them, and I will do that.
Okay, let me try and conclude on this. I'm reliably informed that Minister of Agri has been very successful in their bid to manage debt owed to fertilizers suppliers and seed suppliers to your sector. I don't know what briefings you've received. How would you relate to this?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As a majority chief whip, you will have more information than I do. I am just now being immersed in the sector, and I'm sure that when I get in there and I'm comprehensively briefed, I'll take decisions positively for this republic.
Chair, this will be all, but just to provide information to my friend that I'll be available when he needs any consultancy on
your advert is overruled. Your advert is overruled.
Agro enterprise.
Yes. So
Mr. Chairman, Honorable Nominee, first I want to ask you, did you swear the ministerial oath prior to your assumption of office? Ministerial oath.
As part of the swear, Mr. Chairman, yes, as part of the swearing-in process.
Do you remember what you swore? Can I recap it and read to you? It says that I will uphold the principles of the Constitution, that I will faithfully observe the laws of Ghana, that I will promote the welfare of the people of Ghana, and that in all circumstances, I will do right to all manner of persons, according to the law, without fear, favor, affection, or ill will. Is that the oath you swore? The ministerial oath.
If you say so, unless it has been revised.
Will you, this is the ministerial oath, would you say you upheld your ministerial oath whilst you served as Minister of State at the Ministry of National Security? No, I picked it from the ministerial oath.
It's the same thing.
It's the same thing. I can read it again to you. So you have types of oath: the oath of secrecy, oath of office, yes, oath of office, oath as Minister of Member of Parliament, and then the ministerial oath is oath of office. Yes, oath of a Minister of State is here. So let me read the ministerial oath to you again. Page 207 of the Constitution.
You don't have to. I heard the first one, but
Okay. Can you are not a member of the committee. You are just interjecting me, Honorable Leader. Allow me to make my point. Allow me to make my point.
Mr. Chairman,
I've read it.
With the greatest respect, now that you call me into question, what you read certainly is not the oath of a Minister of State. I don't know where you conjured it from. Read from the Constitution, with the greatest respect.
Honorable Leader, first, you are not a member of this committee. And the chairman never called you, so you are completely out of order. You are completely out of order. Address the chairman first.
The chairman did not give him the go ahead and
You don't rule me out of
Mr.
order.
Chairman.
You don't rule me out of order.
Very
you
well.
have no such authority to read me.
Very well. Now,
you have no such authority.
order. And now, I gave you the chance to raise the objection. Now, please proceed.
Would you say you held that office, you upheld that ministerial oath whilst you served as the Minister of National Security? Did you upheld the oath?
Without more.
I did not hear you. Can you repeat that again?
Without more.
On a hindsight, what would you say about your involvement in the deployment of in a police vehicle to brutalize and injure innocent Ghanaians at La Baoleshi during the Ayawaso West Wagon by-elections?
Mr. Chairman, there's no factual basis to that question and no proof whatsoever to the question. So
at Ayawaso West
Wagon by-elections?
Mr. Chairman, I think if we can afford the member the opportunity to rephrase the question, that if...
Don't worry. Did you authorize any people at Lao Baulishi? I think you have answered that question more than 2 times.
Because he said armed party. That part, that's where I need either rephrase or restate so that I'm sure what question I'm answering.
Mr. Chairman, my question is clear and simple. Were you involved in the deployment? I did not say you authorized. Were you involved in the deployment of the vigilantes at La Bauleshi?
Mr. Chairman, no, I was not involved.
Do you know Ernest Acheampong, aka Double, a dealer in mobile phones at Tiptoe Lane? Do you know him?
I know Double. But I don't know him as a mobile phone dealer.
I want to find out from you, what was Double's role at the Office of the Ministry of National Security?
I met him in the ministry at the national, see, the architecture there is that there's a National Security Secretariat, Council Secretariat, headed by a coordinator. And then there's a Ministry of National Security. And in their operational command, which terminates at the National Security Coordinator, there is the operations unit, and then there's a SWAT unit. I became aware that he was embedded in the SWAT unit.
Honorable nominee, under what provisions of the law did you arm and deploy the law enforcement duties of Lao Bauleshi?
Mr. Chairman, categorical statements are being made without fact. I did not do any such thing. I did not do any such thing.
Can you convince me to trust you as a Minister of State, considering what happened at La Bauleshi?
But I told you are my friend.
It doesn't matter.
And today you don't trust me.
I'm asking a question.
Today you don't trust me.
No, I'm asking a question that, can you convince me?
You should be testifying on my credibility.
No, it's not about credibility. I said convince me. We are here for the people of Ghana. Okay, so we have to ask the questions that are needed. And I'm asking the questions.
I have to. Please, your mic's off. Hey. Now I have to come in.
Honorable nominee. Honorable nominee. Honorable nominee. In your earlier statement, in answering a question posed to you by Honorable Minister for Energy, you said nobody died as part of the Ayawaso West Wagon by-election operation. Are you aware that up to date, a gentleman named Yellow is unable to walk properly? Even though nobody died, but somebody has permanently been injured. Are you aware of that?
My good friend, Ato, I think I mentioned in a preamble to this Ayawaso thing that anything that results in injury, especially around electoral violence, is regrettable. If indeed the statements that you are making is of facts, then I'm saddened by it. I've said it shouldn't have happened. I want, if you can give me any details of this gentleman, I want to visit him. You know, it should never have happened,
And if indeed he's injured, then I think that the state should do something about it. But in terms of my liability to it, you know that it's not the case, but it's quite regrettable.
As Mr. Bryan Acheampong for the injured or victims of Ayawaso West Wagon. What have you done personally?
Mr. Chairman, I actually want to, and I wish there was a platform for me to have been able to. But you realize that up until today, and some members of even this committee have been surprised about my involvement in the matter. It had been hyped to the extent that I didn't even think that these people will want to see my face. And if they are watching this, if there's anything I can do, because I do it for people, I do a lot of philanthropy, and if that opportunity is there, and I told you can lead me, I will want to. Not because I was involved, but because my fellow citizen, it has come to my attention that my fellow citizen is injured. And if I can, I will. And if you lead me to it, I shall do that.
Honorable nominee, the report of the Commission of Inquiry into the Ayawaso West Wagon event and the white paper on the report of the Commission of Inquiry into the Ayawaso West Wagon event both talked about the need to compensate the injured. Are you aware as to whether the government has compensated them?
I pray, not aware whether it has been done or not, but I pray that they have. And if they have not, now that it has come to my attention, I will, whatever the advocacy that needs to be done to make sure that it is done, I shall employ my efforts to that.
Can I take it as an assurance to this committee that you will get involved and ensure that the injured or the injured are actually compensated in line with the two reports that I've just referred to?
I will find out. I'm not too sure, except for a few people. There's been a lot of changes in the ministry, a lot of changes in the last 4 years. If it is true that they have not been compensated, then I'm sure the Ministry of National Security is watching and hearing that it's come up in the committee. By now, people are scrambling there to make sure that the right things are done. I will follow up, and if it is not, I will prompt them of it.
Honorable nominee, in your earlier statement, coming from a question that a colleague asked you, you said the report never mentioned your name once. The report never mentioned your name once. Is that the case? Is that what you said?
In relation to a finding that I specifically authorized the operation, not in anywhere in the 500-page plus document.
Your name has been captured in 3 different places that I've seen in this abridged version of the report.
In relation to me authorized, I want to make it clear that in the 500-page report, the recommendation of the committee was that I should be reprimanded for authorizing an operation in a built-up area. That should take a cue from a finding in the report that says that when XYZ appeared before the committee, they said Bryan authorized us to do that. Throughout the report, There was no such evidence, yet it appeared in the recommendation, and that is exactly what I meant.
Okay. Honorable Bryan, I'm making reference to your CV. You said between 2005 to 2009, United States Air Force enlisted / Ghana, and your responsibilities included the following: attached to the Air Mobility Wing for operational readiness, managed small arms and fuel operations, executed military high command governors or presidential orders. Honorable nominee, you worked with the U.S. Army for 4 years. In what capacity did you work at the U.S. Army? In what capacity?
In the capacity as you just read.
What was your rank?
Enlisted.
Mr. Chairman, I asked this because as ranking member of this committee, it was only right for the honorable nominee to discuss this with us if he thinks that there are matters of national security and it cannot be made public. You discuss it with us before we sit here. But as I sit here, I have no information before me as if this is a matter of national security. So it's only right for me to ask those questions. Mr. Chairman, now I move on to policy. Honorable nominee, our poultry industry is struggling. What will you do to revamp the poultry industry?
Mr. Chairman, for the avoidance of doubt, when you leave the military, you are either giving an honorable certificate or a dishonorable certificate. For the avoidance of that, I'm going to...
We are moved out of that.
Chairman,
we discussed something here. When we finish, we'll go with that, please.
The public is interested, and I want to assure you that immediately we're done, I'm going to produce my honorable discharge certificate.
That he had an honorable or dishonorable certificate. My question was straightforward. What is the rank? If you can't answer,
all that information is on that particular document. That's what I'm trying to tell you.
So you can't say it publicly, but you can say in public that you will bring the document to us.
You have earned the right to be a leader, and you are entitled to certain classified information. On the issue,
Mr. Chairman, what is classified about a rank? A rank in the army. What is classified about it?
Just as you are.
Chairman, I am not comfortable with the way these questions is being answered. So, Chairman, I asked a simple question. I just wanted to know the rank. You asked me to wait so that he brings the information to us. But if he's going back to wait, then it's only right for him to tell us the rank in which he left the army with. It's only right. It's a simple question.
Mr. Chairman, when confirmed, I understand the challenges facing the poultry industry. And It mostly has to do with the inputs, soya, maize, and the price of these inputs. In fact, our poultry industry is virtually on its knees. We have to do everything possible. We're spending so much money importing frozen foods, making our population, our poultry farmers, unemployed. As a ministry, I will lead a process to ensure that the inputs that they require to make sure that the industry is viable will be pursued.
Honorable Minister, Honorable Nominee and Honorable Former Minister for National Security, former Minister of State at the National Security. Poultry feed plays a major role in the survival of our poultry industry. Currently, the prices of poultry feed has tripled. Is there any measures you can put in place to ensure that our poultry farmers can get access to this feed at a cheap cost so that our poultry product can also be cheap?
Honorable Chairman, I'm sure that if the inputs were cheap anywhere, the poultry farmers themselves would have gone for it. It has to do with our capacity to produce these things locally at the cost where it will be bearable for them, so that this input will in turn lead to